guys. I want to say hello, welcome. I'm going to try to find us in the group so that I can see that we are live, and we are live. Awesome. All right, so hello everybody. I have a very special guest to introduce you to today. Her name is Deanna, and basically she is here to share her story about getting out of, or actually recovering and taking her life back after her narcissistic marriage of 10 years. He not only left her once, but left her twice, and she says tried 4 times, so we're definitely going to get into that. But now she knows that she will never go back to him. So we are excited to introduce you. Hello, Deanna. How are you today?
Hi, I'm good. Definitely better now that this, not now that this mentorship is over. I loved every second of it, even like the deep crying and getting to the tough spots. I even love that, but obviously, you know, feeling stronger and better now.
Awesome. So, and I'm so sorry to hear about your puppies. They were sick last week, but they're doing better now, right?
Oh yeah, they're good now. Medication's a wonder.
Good. Awesome. All right, guys, if you are here, please let me know. Give me some comments. Give me some hearts for Deanna. I am looking over here to my phone because for some reason when you stream on Zoom, unless anybody knows different, I cannot see comments here. I got to look on the phone. All right. So Alice is here. Hello. If you are here, let me know in the comments. Let me know where you're calling in from. And also, if you're catching the replay, give me the hashtag replay. We all know the deal here, right? Awesome. All right. So Deanna, share a little bit about basically, how did you find me?
So this is really actually funny. This is one of those like divine timing things that I'll never forget. So I've been trying to open up my psychic channel. I was told years ago that I had this ability, and I've always felt like it was something that was possible. And so, but my ex was someone who was so skeptical and such a downer on all things spiritual that I really never had the space or the energy or the, you know, encouragement to try and, you know, I guess work on that part of myself. I didn't feel like it was something that was allowed. There was no safe space for it, or I was branded like a crazy person. So I actually literally, I think a week after he left, I found your 21 days to opening your psychic abilities course on Facebook. It was just a random ad. And I was like, I literally just remember sitting there going, why the hell not? Like, what do you have to lose? You've been trying to do this on your own for years. Maybe you should take a class. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. Why not? And so, and there was just something about your energy. I was like, you know what? She seems pretty cool. I'll give her a shot. So I started there, and obviously I loved every second of that course. I was like constantly commenting and working on the stuff. I loved it. And then at the end of that, I was realizing like, I felt like there was a deeper level of healing that needed to be done before I could actually, there was like this feeling of unworthiness with connecting to something higher, or that I would even be able to have this skill set, or that I would be able to build that, because there was just something in me that was saying like, you know, your ex-husband didn't want you multiple times, like, you know, the love of your life didn't want you so many times, your parents didn't want you, like all of this, like, why would you be worth a divine connection? And so I was realizing it was really getting in the way, and I just had all this self-doubt around whether or not I could. And again, it was just this like worth thing. And I knew that because so a little bit of background, my ex and I had been divorced before. And so it was like the second marriage ending. So I was like, okay, clearly there's a cycle here that I haven't worked out. And I just was so intent on not wanting to go backwards anymore. And then you started talking about your mentorship towards the end of the 21 days. And I was like, okay, what's this about? And then we did our talk, and I was like, okay, universe, I'm listening. So then I signed up on the phone that night and just said like, you know what, I'm really, it was like this moment of saying like, thank you to the old me for being what you were, because I needed that to learn, and I needed you to be there in that way during that time. But like, this has got to end. Like there's no happiness to be had if we don't clear this stuff out that's gotten us where we are. And it's okay that it got us where we are. That's a good thing. But like, time to cut some ties, old Deanna, and take a hike.
Let's talk about a little bit of where you were, because you went through some rough stuff with this ex-husband of yours. Can you tell us about the first time he left, or he left?
Yeah. So the first time he left, we'd been married for 5 years. For some context, we got married when we were 18. So, you know, the typical, like, you don't know yourself. Like, okay, mom and dad, I guess you're right. Like, as painful as that is to say. We got married at 18. We were married for 5 years, and both of us were in the military. And he had been deployed for 6 months. And then 2 weeks before he was supposed to come home, he just randomly video called me and said, I don't want to be married anymore. I just don't want to do this anymore. And there was no explanation. I remember like yelling at him, being like, you're such a coward, blah, 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 which is so not me. I'm normally the very docile, accommodating, don't ruffle feathers type, but I felt like I had to again, there was that like me that needed him. So I was like, ugh, and I couldn't let go. And so I did what I could to get under his skin. So then we didn't talk for 2 weeks. He came home. And we lived together for a month. And for context too, he was getting out of the military at the time, but he was supposed to come with me to my next assignment. So we were moving so he came home from this deployment in April. May, we were moving from Hawaii to California for my next assignment. So he told me at the end of April that he was not coming with me at the end of May. And so I had to redo my move. I ended up having to file for the divorce that I didn't want, and that I had zero idea for why it was even happening because he never told me. So I went through all of that, and in I would say in that month of May, so I left Hawaii, I left all of my support system. I lost my husband. I went home to Florida to see my parents that month, and they went on 2 separate family vacations without me out of state while I was home for 3 weeks because they just didn't want anything to do with me. So I lost like my family, my husband, my support system. I moved to California. I went through like a really, really dark time. And then the fall of that year, my ex randomly called me and told me that the reason he'd asked for the divorce was because he'd had an affair. And he didn't tell me because he was like, well, I felt like I was damned if I did, damned if I didn't. I'd lose you either way. So being probably still very much attached to him, I remember at one point sitting in a mall parking lot screaming at the universe, like, I just want him. Like, I just want this relationship with him. Well, prayer answered, but so I got my second chance. He came after he told me about the affair. I was kind of like I kind of resonated, I guess, with the idea of being in a no-win situation. Like if he told me, like, that would have been tough, but if he didn't tell me, like, he couldn't move forward in a relationship in good conscience either. So I kind of, looking back, I'm like, it was so wrong and unacceptable and something that I now would definitely have a boundary around. But then I was like, oh, I get it. Like, I can see where he's coming from, and I wanted him bad enough I was going to make it work. So he ended up moving back out that December to be in California with me, and we got remarried. So that's the first divorce.
Oof. Okay. So you took him back.
Oh yeah.
What happened?
All good.
Be careful what you manifest, girl.
I've never been more of a believer in manifestation than I was after yelling in the parking lot that I just wanted to be. And the universe was like, girl, we tried to get him away from you the first time, but I was like, I'm not done yet. So I had to go back for another 3 years to figure it out.
Learn the lesson. So then what happened after 3 years? Then what happened?
So 2 years later, we went on a weekend retreat together, and he basically came back from this retreat demanding an open marriage with a girl that he'd met on the retreat that I was on with him. And we'd already talked about this, and I'd said it wasn't for me. So that was definitely something where I was like, so that's kind of, I think, where I started to kind of draw some lines. But it was just because I knew that wasn't something that I would be able to do and be even remotely happy in. Like, I think with him, I'd always make these sacrifices around, like, could I see myself maybe being possibly happy at all? Like, could I make it work? It was like, could I fit my round peg into that square hole? And it was like, with this one, I was like, I can't do that. And it was just such a betrayal. Like, I'll never forget him telling me that when we got back, I turned into a total psycho person, just like screaming, like, there's and it was literally like, I literally was screaming, I don't want to share, like a 6-year-old. I was like, oh my God, if that wasn't the inner child coming out and being like, no, like, it was really funny looking back. I'm like, that was the inner child 100%. But, so I said, look, I'm not going to go that way. I can't do that. If you need that to be happy, I love you and I want you to be happy. but I can't do that because I won't be happy. And we'd made plans to move to Florida. I'd already set up a career here, and he was basically saying now we weren't going to move to Florida either. We were going to sell the truck that we just bought a month earlier. Like, he was making big major life decisions without consulting me, talking to me about it at all. I would always find out about how things were going to be rather than, hey, this is kind of what I'm feeling. Can we do it together? And so I realized he like couldn't grasp why that wasn't okay with me. That, you know, an open marriage was just kind of like, and it was posed as like, I need this. He was saying this has to happen. And I was like, well, I can't do that. I'm moving to Florida in August. So this was in February. I was like, I'm moving to Florida in August, and you can either come with me and be monogamous, or we'll part ways and you go have your however many partners. And so he sat on it for 3 months and ended up saying like, okay, I'm 100% in it with you. We moved out to Florida in August. And then not like literally almost to the week, a year later, this February, he just, we got in a fight about dishes or something stupid. He didn't talk to me for 4 days. And then he just woke up. I walked into the kitchen. He looked like he was like about to cry. And I was like, what's up? And he's like, I feel like I need to leave. And I was like, okay. And he was like, yeah, I don't want to be married anymore. And so I was like, well, we've been here before. So zero conversation. There was no desire to fix anything. He never wanted to go to therapy. There was never anything, you know, there was never any build up, nothing. And he even said like, things are good, but I just don't want to be here. And so I was like, okay. And this time I think there was something that clicked in me where I just said like, I hit a point where there was nothing left to give. So I just kind of like, I just felt really shut down. And I remember just saying, okay, if that's what you need, that's fine. Let's do it. Let's do it this time. And so, and there, it was obviously emotional at certain points, but in that moment, like I had this just like inner peace that was like, no, it's time. Like there's nothing else to give this person. And I started to realize like, I don't think I'm in love with him anymore. It's just like, I've invested so much that I wouldn't let go, I think is what it kind of became. So he said that on a Saturday. By the next Sunday, he was completely moved out, and divorce was filed by the very next Thursday. So, and he's like, we have to do it quick or else I'll change my mind. And I was like, well, we wouldn't want that to happen, would we? So I was like, all right, let's do it. Like, let's just rip the Band-Aid off. And I knew I was ready because I'd gone to I knew I was going to stay in our apartment, and I'd gone to IKEA, and I'd like hoarded little like decorations and stuff in corners of my closet and like hidden these things before he'd even moved out. Before he'd even moved out, I'd already had like decorations sitting around that I was ready to put up the day he moved out. And so it was this weird process of being really excited to move into this next phase because I knew that it was time, but then I also had to do a lot of grieving and releasing of old cycles. And like, you know, the thing is I still cared about him. And so there was a lot of that mixed in too. So is this both like knowing I'm moving in a very positive direction, but it also being incredibly painful because you have to kind of rip away the old parts of you that continued all of that negativity.
Yeah. And it's kind of easier to talk about it now because you've been through the healing process rather than, sitting in that emotion that you were in, like when we started the program. And even at that point, after all that he put you through, you were still, I remember being on the phone with you and telling me like how you still were giving so much to him. Like you were still like, didn't, and I was like, girl, what are you doing? Like, you remember, like you were just giving him like the dogs, like sharing the dog. I'm like, what are we doing here? Why are we doing this? He was the one that chose to leave, right?
Yep.
Where are you with that now?
So it's actually funny. Like I do still let him see the dogs if he wants to. And I think that's just because for me, like, I know, like I feel there's a part of me that felt like I don't need to be involved with him, but I don't feel right removing something that's a source of unconditional love from another person's life. Mm-hmm. So that's where I'm coming at it from. And if it's not from that space, then I'm not engaging in it anymore. So like I was already going, so funny story, my ex-husband now lives in the landlord of my office that I work in lives directly next door to the office that I work in. And you can see like into her backyard from my office. Well, my ex now lives in the guest house of her backyard. So my ex lives right next door to where I work all the time, which is, I knew how much healing I'd done because when I found that out, I just laughed. I was just like, of course he does. Like, of course he does. But, you know, I'd say one thing too that was really prominent to why I'm okay with that dynamic with him right now is because he would come over and start a fight with me about the dogs. You know, you chose to leave, but then you're going to come over and say like, oh, you kept the dogs for me. Like, no, you want to go live on a trail for 7 months and not have any contact with another human being. I think that I should keep the dogs, right? That's just sane. But I basically had an opportunity to tell him like, look, I would never accept someone. He went really, really low during this argument, really baited me. And I, as I told you, like, he got me to go to his level. I went there, I was yelling and screaming at him, which was fine. I look back and I'm like, you know what, screw it. Like everything, it's all right. If I yelled at him, who cares? Like, in a way, I'm like, he had it coming. But
they deserve it sometimes. Good.
Yeah, he's yelled at me too, so it's like, you know what, screw it. But after that fight, he came back and he did apologize, and it was, I think, because I normally would have followed after him and been like, why are you mad at me? Are you mad at me? Are you mad at me? I let him sit in it because I was like, that is not mine. I don't have anything to apologize for in that fight because I didn't say anything I didn't mean, and all I did was hold my ground. Whereas normally, even if I just held my ground, I'd be apologizing because I was in any way confrontational or disruptive, right? So I think one thing that really shifted that is when he came back, he said to me like, hey, I really came at you sideways. I'm sorry. Like, he said, that was me sitting with my own selfishness, and that was hard to look at. So it almost, like, by me disengaging, I saw too where he got to be self-reflective because I didn't ease the comfort of him having to hold that mirror up to himself.
Mm-hmm.
And then that gave me the opportunity to say, I wouldn't accept treatment like that from a friend, so I definitely can't accept that from you. And so he knows from this point on, if we're going to have any sort of interaction, that it cannot ever be that. And so, and ever since then, he's been very polite, very supportive, very, like, I feel like, not in like a mean way, but like I kind of put him in his place and showed him like, look, I don't, and I think he could feel how serious I was, that I was like, look, no, I'm really letting this go. And like, I have zero, like, calling to be attached to you. I'm just being nice and letting you see the dogs, but that it's not worth it to me if you're not going to be respectful. But being able to say that really changed the dynamic. And now we don't like hang out all the time, but like we had to do some taxes stuff, and we had to do, you know what I mean? So now when we're doing stuff like that, he's not playing the mind games with me that he used to, because I changed the dynamic.
You set that boundary. Ladies,
Yeah.
that is what a boundary looks like. So tell me something, Deanna, what shifted you in order to set that boundary?
So I think I don't remember what week it was that we dug into this, but like I didn't realize just how much growing up I'd been told like I wasn't allowed to say no. You were reading through a book that was saying like if you were a kid, if you were saying no was defiant or was being insubordinate or all of these things. And then I realized like not only was my entire childhood completely geared around I had to make my parents happy, no matter what that meant for me as a kid. And so many times it was to my detriment, or things I didn't want to do, or things I didn't want to say, or that I didn't agree with, but I would have to go along with it. But then I joined the military, and I was in the military for 7 years, where, you know, if someone tells you what to do, you just do it. And like, you better not give them lip or attitude or any of that. So I was so used to being so accommodating that like my self-worth and my ability to say like, that's not me. And I think that's like the biggest takeaway that shifted it for me, is it's like, okay, I can kind of do that, that inner check-in of like, okay, is there an emotion here that is conflicting? Like if I'm saying yes, or I'm going along with this, is there some part of me that feels almost like it's being tugged in half? Like, is there conflict in there? Or am I saying like, you know what, that's not for me because that doesn't jive with my inner being. Like you can feel that. I'm much more aware of that inner tension when I'm doing something that doesn't serve me. Like someone was like, at work, somebody was like, oh, like I have to do this, or whatever. And like, I almost found myself saying like, oh, well, I can do it. But then I was like, wait a minute, that's their job. Why would I take that on? And that's something that they should have already done. But I found myself trying, like, almost like, and then I would go, wait, why am I offering to do that? And so it's just this moment of, and I could feel there was like this tension building prior to me saying, I want to let me do that. So now I can catch it at the tension part, keep myself from overextending or going out of my own boundary, and stay stay where I want to be, rather than feeling like I have to even offer up like, oh, okay, here, come into my boundaries, you know, like.
Oh my gosh, I love that for you. I love it so much. Yes, you're standing in your worth and you're realizing that other people are responsible for their own stuff. So tell me something. So we work together in the mentorship, the From Pain to Power mentorship. Tell me something, before you signed up for that program, how'd you feel about it? Like, were you scared? Were you excited? What was it?
So I'm gonna be honest. I feel like I'm a total like shadow work masochist. I love it. Like I will do shadow work all day. Like I'm a life coach, and like I said, I work in a therapy office, and it's not a good day unless my client cries. Period. Like you're not getting to the root of it unless you're crying. And so like I really, and like I had a couple calls with you where I was really in it. But there's like something in me that's like, it hurts so good. If that makes sense. Like it's just like I'm a little masochistic. So I was actually really excited to start your program, because I just felt like it would give me tools I desperately needed, and that I definitely wasn't scared. Like I was ready to start it, and I was excited. And then the only part I was unsure about, because I just had never experienced it before, was the energy healings, which again, like I wasn't afraid of it. I was really eager to try it, but I just never experienced it. So I was very like, oh, what's this going to be about? And it's right up my alley. So I was super excited for it. And that actually ended up being, I think, one of the energy healings you did on one of the live calls particularly ended up being a really powerful moment for me that really shifted old childhood energy that's been with me for a really long time. And like to this day, when I think about it, the event that I was brought to another place during your energy healing to say goodbye to these family members that had wronged me, including my ex-husband. And like, it was like just our like higher selves together on another plane. And I just got to hug them and say like, okay, goodbye. And it was like this, thank you for the lessons, but we stop here. Like, it was just like this very loving, like, thank you for everything, but this is where it ends. And like, it, like, ever since then, when I think about my dad or my stepmom or my ex-husband, I don't get, like, I used to be the person that was in the shower, like figuring out what I was going to say to them next. And like, oh, if I ever run into them, I'm just going to say like, oh, you're such a turd and I hate you. And like, that was me all the time. And then now it's like, when I think about that, I'm like, whatever. Like, it just doesn't hit that nerve that it used to. And that energy healing was like a major turning point for me and those are the things that I went into this hoping, because I knew that my ex-husband was really more rooted in childhood parental things. So that was what I was really hoping that we would clear out during the mentorship. And so energy healing really, I feel like, just totally shifted a lot of that stagnation for me.
Awesome. All right, you guys have any questions for Deanna? I see a lot of you here. So Krista's here. Krista, did you realize that you won, what did you win? A 20-minute with me. So make sure you check that out. Alice is here, Crystal, Chris, Raquel, Leanne's here, Dan's here. Hello, Teresa's here, Annie's here. Hello, Nicole's here, Shan's here. Hello, ladies. You guys have any questions for Deanna? So tell me something. So you weren't scared, you were excited, which makes you my type of people to get into this and get it all out, because that's really what we're here to do, right? So everyone's giving you a lot of love and saying, Alice wants to know, how'd you get divorced that quickly?
Well, we filed, but then I had because we filed like a week before quarantine went into effect. So I was like, oh no, like this is going to take forever now. I literally was emailing the court like weekly, like, hey, like this is uncontested. We don't have anything to disagree on. Can we just sign it? And they ended up signing it. So it was done and over in like about a month. It was really fast for me, but I was ready to be done with it. So I was constantly like, are we done yet? Are we done yet? Are we done yet? Can you just send me that approval, please?
Awesome. Awesome. So, and you're closing on your very own house next week, right?
Yep. My very own first house. As soon as I got divorced, me and my ex were supposed to buy a house when our lease was up in our apartment after the first year in Florida. So I had just had this moment of like, why do I feel like I need him to give myself something I've been wanting for years? Especially when his inability to settle down and be still was the reason that I never was able to follow through with that. Like, he wanted to move every year on the year for the last 8 years. And so I've never felt settled. And so I was like, well, why am I waiting for someone else to give me that stability? Because I can do it for myself. And I'd never even considered buying a house for myself. And after we got divorced, I was like, you know what? I can do it. So about 2 months ago, I started looking and I found the perfect house, and it's like 10 minutes from work and closing next week. So I'm super excited. But I don't know that I would have felt as confident going into this on my own if I hadn't done both the 21 days class and the mentorship. Like the 21 days class did a lot to build confidence for me too. Like the mentorship cleared out a lot of stagnant emotional baggage, but the 21 days course really like kind of, I think it really helped me trust myself a lot more than what I did before, and to really just like trust spirit to, like I just tell myself, like the universe has never let you fall. It has never let you fall, and it won't let you fall this time. Just go with the flow. And everything fell into place really smoothly.
Awesome. I love that. Absolutely love that. And yeah, and I think a lot of people for the 20, and Deanna's talking about my 21 days to opening and accelerating your psychic abilities, which really teaches you the connection with the divine. But it's not all about that. There's a lot of life, like I say, life nuggets that I put in there that a lot of people were like blown away. I was like, wow. I was like, that's not even about the psychic abilities. So like, it was very eye-opening to see that. So guys, we are starting that July 1st. If you guys are interested in that, you can see, I'll be posting some links in the group. So Terry wants to know, how did you get your power back?
You know, I don't know that there was one moment where I was like, oh, it's back. It was like, because here's the thing is, I don't feel like I ever had it. Like my mom left when I was 2, and I lived with a single dad who worked a traveling job. And when I was 80, married a narcissistic product of an alcoholic childhood who was very mentally and physically abusive. And then I went into the military and a marriage that was narcissistic for 10 years. So I think this is really the first time I've ever felt like I've had any power, period. So I don't know, like, I don't know if it's like, it's not really coming back. It's just like, I'm discovering it piece by piece every day. It's not like this, like snap the fingers and it's all here. And I still have days where, you know, I don't feel as in my power, but then I'll, you know, the next day I can kind of pick myself back up by the bootstraps. And, you know, my friend Angelique calls it putting on your ass kicking lady boots. Like, you know, so like it just is day by day for me. And I think that just me saying when I'm in my power is when I'm going to make the decisions, and that I'm going to stick by that feeling that I had in that moment of power when the fear creeps in. So like when I decided to buy my house, like in that moment, I felt very strong and powerful. Like I can give this to myself. But then in the last 2 months, with all like buying houses, a lot of big money figures that are very scary. And there's been a lot of ups and downs and a lot of houses that have fallen through. But it's been about sticking with like that feeling of empowerment I had when I decided I could do it. And kind of referring back to that when I'm feeling out of my power, or when it starts to feel overwhelming, because the power kind of, for me at least, and I think it's just because maybe I haven't stood in it long enough yet for it to be like it's always there. But when I would say it's there more now than it's not. So for me, it's just been like it's been a day by day process, but I don't know. I think that kind of keeps it fun.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I always say, like, and especially like if you guys are jumping on calls with me to see if this mentorship is right for you, it's like, I'm never going to lie to you and be like, oh yeah, you're going to be in your power every single day. Because there's days I'm not in my power, you know, but the majority of the days I am, right? Definitely during my PMS week, definitely not in my power, but the ego definitely comes in more. And ladies, be aware of that. I think I've spoke about that before. But also, do you feel through the mentorship that you got the tools that you needed in order to, if something, the emotional triggers, right, that are not coming up for you anymore with your parents, but say if something came up with your ex, like, do you feel like you got those tools, and maybe go into a little bit about that, like the process to kind of talk yourself down out of those emotional triggers and figure out where they come from and stuff? Can you
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So I definitely feel like when my ex, like I do defer a lot to like, okay, if something triggers something in me, like I had this just like, it was very simple, but I just had this like profound statement just kind of pop into my head one day, like boundaries have to be crossed for you to know that they're there. Like, okay. So now every time I'm feeling some sort of way, I'm like, I can, because I'm understanding that like the analogy of the gate and the fence and of property responsibility that we go through in the boundaries week really helped me to kind of understand like, okay, someone's on my property. Like, where are they on my property? Where did I let them into my property? Where did I not let them know like, hey, back up a little bit. You can't see it, but there's a property line there. Or, I definitely have tools for now going like, okay, I was triggered and where did that come from? But I noticed even like, it was the day after the mentorship ended, I'd seen my ex, and I thought some random thought about what if I saw him with another girl? Like, it's like, there's that typical thing with your ex where it's like, I don't want him, but like, how dare you move on? Like how dare you? But like, if I wanted to, it'd be like, you have no right to tell me. Right? Like, of course, like that still plays out because I'm human. I think every woman resonates with that, but
Everyone's giving you loves.
I'll be really honest with you guys. I'll never sugarcoat it. But it was a thought like that. And I was like, well, where does that bother me? Like, what is that hitting that I've felt before in childhood? And so I kind of just followed, it's like this, like a little, little, you go down the rabbit hole and you hit these different pockets of realization. And I hit a whole bunch of them in a really short amount of time. And I think that practicing it through the mentorship really helped me kind of be able to get there a little faster on my own. And because I understand now better the way that energy healing works and like how to show up for those feelings in a way that says like, it's okay that you felt that way. I ended up tracing this, like, I don't want him to be with someone else, to like this really deep abandonment root with my mom that I hadn't gotten to yet. I always thought it was my dad and my stepmom because that's who I lived with. But then it was like, oh shoot, like mommy is the real abandonment here because she left when I was 2. My earliest memories watching her drive her car away. Like, of course that's like the root, but I hadn't even thought of that because I was like, well, my dad and Michelle were the abusers. But then it's like, okay, but mom left me with the abusers.
Right.
He drove from Florida to Colorado and left me there and never came back. Right. So it was like this, like, oh, like I literally was watching TV mindlessly and I was just like, oh, like hits you in the gut. And it's weird too, just like a funny little tidbit for people who like the physical connections with emotion. I had a few years back, I had a really terrible surgery when I was in the military. I had a remnant of my umbilical cord that never fully dissolved, which most people's just dissolve shortly after birth. Mine never did. So this umbilical cord was still semi-attached on the inside, and it had an infected cyst in it that was bleeding out through my belly button, which I think is really interesting with like the mom aspect of that. So it was like, and my scar was really hurting that day. And that was kind of like, I was like, what is going on with my scar? And I started ruminating on this stuff, and it led me down the abandonment thing. And so I like had this moment where I just put my hand over that scar and I showed up for that inner child and said, like, it's okay. You did deserve to have a mom that was there and that didn't leave you and that cared about where she was leaving you. And, but it was also this, like, at the same time, seeing where my mom was human and didn't think that she could do better. Therefore, she just didn't try to. So it's like, I saw her in it, but I also was able to show up for that child. And like, I did this, like, I almost like this sounds so woo-woo out there, but I love it. But like, I just kind of showed up as a mother for my inner child and like envisioned myself holding that child and in my own arms, like, it's okay. Like, I'm here for you and I'll never leave. And like, I just had this conversation with it. And I feel like for 2 weeks prior to this, I'd been really irritable with my mom anytime I talked to her. And then after that, it completely dissolved because it was like, I'd showed up for that part of me that was really hurting. So I also see where the Course, that was a really long-winded way of saying, I think the Course really showed me how to not just get to the root of it. Like I think in the past I've been able to get to like the root of like, oh, this like really nasty childhood thing that happened that's making me feel that way, but I haven't known what to do with it after that. And I think the Course really showed me like what to do with it once I find it and how to resolve it so that it's not just sitting there eating at me. But I feel like up to this point, I just had gotten stuck at the like being very aware of the trauma rather than getting to the other side of it and showing up for what was actually hurt.
Right. I love that. I know for me, it's like, I always remember like, yeah, I have daddy issues. I walked into the therapist going, I have daddy issues. He left. I didn't see him for 9 years. I know this. And then part of me as an adult, and I always say this to everybody, is that guys, as an adult, you can understand maybe why your parents were like that. Maybe they came from bad places too. Maybe they just never learned what they were supposed to teach us. Like, as an adult, we get that. But as the child, we had no clue. And our brains cannot process this type of stuff. So as that child, for me, I think it was about 9 or so, like, I couldn't process why he left. I was mad. I was pissed. Like I grew up going, I don't need a man, right? And then I get involved with narcissistic ones. But it's that child that's within. And you know, you mentioned inner child work. I don't really do inner child, quote unquote, like inner child work, but we work with the subconscious and the situations around that child. I mean, that's where most of our course, I mean, that's where the change takes place. Would you agree with that, Deanna?
Yeah, I think one of the most powerful exercises you did in the course was, and I actually avoided it. I'm someone that's like, I'll dive head in first and I'll go for the challenging stuff. But the one prompt where you asked us to be in our childhood bedroom, I didn't want to do that one. And that one really turned my stomach. Like I really had to sit in that one. And that's where I think there's a lot of overlap with that inner child, because you do have to connect with the energy of that in order to get there, like in order to really see, like, look, this is what you felt like you were missing. Like that, and again, I'm normally someone that's like, hell yeah, bring it on, more pain, more better. But that exercise, I was like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah. It's where you see the most resistance is where you have to go, because you're resisting it for a reason. Because you know that ego is like, no, it's too scary. We don't want to touch that. You know, we're comfortable over here in our comfort zone, being unhappy and, you know, trying every other thing, but the one thing that we need to do, right?
My ego was like, oh, what is that going to teach you that you won't already know? It's just a bedroom. And I was like, okay, I know I need to do it if it's trying to talk me out of the storm.
Your ego's talking you out of it. No. All right, so let's see what we got over here. So they say, awesome, great job, so inspiring, very proud of you, inspiring. Both of you are awesome. Thanks, Dan. So yeah, so what do you think, just to recap all of this, what do you think the most important thing that you got out of the mentorship was?
Whew, how to pick one. So again, like, and so I'll break it up into two different things. So, cause I don't think the energy healing is necessarily something I got out of it, something like I feel like you gave in it, that energy healing where I got to say goodbye to those family members was beyond profound for me. So I think that alone completely shifted things that I've been trying to drop for literally a decade. So that I would say is like one of my biggest things that I gained from it, that I don't think I would have gotten if I hadn't done it this way. And then outside of that, I would say, I think that the boundaries, like you kept saying, like, this is the most important week, but it really is the most important week. Guys. Like, the boundaries were life-changing for me, like learning. I'm still obviously learning and growing, and I'm gonna mess it up still, but I feel like I can go like, okay, like that one didn't go so well, but let's, you know, we'll get it right next time. But the boundaries and learning, like seeing like where we were told as children, all of these, like how we were supposed to be. And I knew like, oh, I was raised to be accommodating and all of that. But like when you were going through the list of like, if you heard this as a child, and I was like, oh my gosh, every single one of them. So it was really eye-opening. I think, again, it's like those boundaries, I think, are what help you stand in your power. So I would say like standing in my power unapologetically is something I got from this, but it's because of the boundaries. Like the boundaries are what make me feel capable of standing in my power, because there's some kind of structure to it. Before it was like, I want to stand in my power, but I felt completely exposed, totally vulnerable to whatever anyone would throw my way. It's really hard to say, like I kept trying to stand in my power before I had really defined where my property lines were. Which now I'm realizing is really backwards. But I think that I just didn't know, because I'm sitting here like everyone's like, get in your power, girl, get in your power, girl. And I'm like, I'm trying. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And apparently you have to say no. Like you have to be able to say no first, which, you know, was necessary. But I'm really, this was a really nice and safe environment to learn it in. And I think also hearing all the other women on the calls too, like you get really inspired by everyone else going through it at the same time. I feel like there's just something between women when we show up for each other that's very unique, that just the energy is so healing and positive and uplifting. But then also like you always hear yourself in the other people on the call too. Like you can always relate to where they are and what they're going through and what they're feeling, even if their situations are totally different. Like, so it was also like, I think a major takeaway for me was, again, like it was just another reconfirmation of like, we're all the same, and that you can learn from everybody around you too. And it was really nice to have that that group of both support, but also to be trusted to show up for these other women when they needed it too.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the community that we form and that we all like become friends, because when you go through a healing like this, like, would you call this, like, I call it a deep intensive healing. Would you call it your face?
This is like an accelerated course. I literally, like, if anyone's thinking about taking it, like if you feel really crazy by week 2 or 3,
you're in the right place.
doing it right. Like I remember calling you week 2 and being like, Danielle, I don't know, it was just like such a mess. Like, but it had to come out, you know, it had to come out. And I'm talking like everything from like the age of 2 on. It was like the floodgates had opened. It's not like I hadn't opened those gates before or talked about any of it before, but it was just like everything in me, like there was like something inside knew like, okay, this is the time. Like this is the time to really resolve it and to really bring it forward. So, and I told Spirit ahead of time, I was like, all right, let's do it. I literally said, bring it on, which you should probably never tempt the universe by saying, bring it on. But I like to push limits. So I did, but yeah, if you feel crazy by week 2, I think everybody's there. I think the entire week 2, week 3 calls was just all of the women on there crying.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And I say that, like, guys, if I get on calls with you, like I tell you, the first 3 weeks are rough. But Deanna, by week 3, like, how'd you feel? Like, were you still the same person as week 1?
No. And I would say too, like, I think week 3 was kind of like, so that's like the week, when you're in the military, they say the basic training is there to break you down so they can build you back up in their image. Well, this one was more of like, you have to break down everything that you think is you to start building up the real you. So I think that it was just like the first 3 weeks are really kind of dismantling. And I think the reason we get so like is because literally your identity is kind of crumbling over those first few weeks in a good way. In a good way, but your identity is kind of crumbling because you have to shed all those things that you've carried as you for so long. And like, if you think about it, this is 100% an intensive course because it's a lifetime condensed into 8 weeks. Like, I don't think there's any way to get around that being an intensive course, but yeah, I would say that I would say I started to feel a real shift around week 4, because week 3 was kind of like, I was really low energy for like week 3 and 4, just because you're processing so much emotional stuff and it's always in your head as you're going throughout your day too, because it's just so on the surface. But after that, it started to calm down. And then I think I had another rough week around, I think it was week 7, because I noticed as you start to feel more confident and to love yourself and to show up, your ego is going to push back. It rises to meet you. If your confidence is going up, the ego rises to meet you and will start telling you all the reasons why you're not worthy of love and all the reasons why you're not enough. And like, oh, you think you healed that? Oh, well, you know what I mean? Like, the ego really came in. So I did have another rough week later in the program. But I kind of chose to see it as a good sign, because it just my ego coming in to try and get me to go back down. And the way I see it is like, the closer you are to that threshold of moving into this new you, this next phase, the more the ego is going to try and keep you in the space you were already in. So I just pushed through, and I'll be honest, I'm still in it a little bit, but I see it for what it is, and I'm utilizing obviously support systems and things like that. I'm just trying to do, just like, again, like I follow a lot of Abraham Hicks, if anyone's familiar with her, and she always says, just find the next best feeling thought. So I just, you know, constantly like, my ego is Barbara. I'm like, shut up, Barbara. We don't need to hear from you, you cranky old.
Oh my God, that's my mom's name.
But no.
I love it. I
drew my journal, and I'm just like, shut up, Barbara. And I view all these voices in my head, all my archetypes, as like a little conference table. And like, I'm the CEO, and I get to tell if one of them pipes up and says something, I'm like, that's a terrible idea. Sit down. Like, we're not talking to you anymore. You don't get to speak for the rest of this meeting. Like, so it's just kind of putting them all in their place. But I'm willing to, at least, I think that part of taking your power back is being willing to step into that CEO role of your own mind and of your own person, and being willing to tell those voices, like, you're not helping. Like, you don't have anything nice to say, so you can sit down.
Yeah. And it's important that, like, I call it, we're spiritually human, right? So a lot of women will come to me and they're like, well, I do energy healing and I do all of this stuff, but we're missing the subconscious part of our minds, the human. So like, we have to remember, yes, we're spiritual beings, but we're in a human body. So we really have to connect the two. And that's what I say, like I do, is like I connect the energy with the mind so that we get it on the same page. Now, the ego is always going to be there. That's our human side. So my sun's going down, so my light is getting darker, but that's our human side. So like, we have to learn how to dance with that, which is what you're talking about. And it is a good sign, because the harder your ego is attacking you, that means that you are so close to that next version of you, that version that is letting go of the old one, right? No boundaries, worthless, like this type of stuff, and stepping into that new version. So I absolutely love that. Yes. So what are you excited about moving forward? What are you doing?
Oh my gosh. I'm so obviously, moving into my own house. I feel like, I'm providing myself with stability that'll help me change. Like, I want to make a lot of other really healthy, positive habit changes in my life. And I feel like building that stability for myself will kind of get me out of that like root chakra, fight or flight type of, I have no security, therefore I can't focus on anything else.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be able to really like build something that lasts for myself, because I'm not always going to just be in this survival mode. I'm really, honestly, I'm kind of excited about dating again. Which is something I never thought I would say, especially this soon after, like the first divorce, the entire 6 months, I was on my couch sobbing, stuffing my face with Cheetos and Ho-Hos. Like, I just want EJ back. Like, just like watching soaps and like I was a mess. Whereas this one, I'd say like maybe 2 months after he left, I was like kind of okay again. And after this mentorship, I'm actually kind of in a spot where like, I'm not looking for a relationship, but I'm like, I'm excited about the prospect of getting back out there, because I think that who I am now would attract something very different than what I had,
Yeah.
which would be a lot more enjoyable than what I had. And I know now that I wouldn't go down the same path of something that would make me that unhappy. So I'm excited about that. I'm definitely excited about this new like confidence, because I'm going into starting a very big business venture with a good friend of mine. So we're expanding this therapy company into a multifaceted, multimodality healing center that offers all sorts of spiritual, like Reiki, mediums, mental health care, life coaching, acupuncture. Like, we're expanding into all these things. And I'm the office manager, and she's bringing me in on the ground floor. And I feel like the confidence that this has given me, and the self-worth, and like okay, you know what, I'm capable and I can figure it out, will probably carry me pretty far in what I have these big dreams. And I think they're things that I would have never actually felt capable. And because I wouldn't have felt capable, I never would have actually done it. Whereas now I feel like, okay, it's going to happen and I'll figure it out. And I just feel like there's so much more, and like the possibilities were always there, but I think for the first time I'm actually willing to go for them, because I'm not afraid of failure, or of not being enough to handle it, or of, I started doing tarot readings on my Instagram, which is something I've been doing for years, but no one knew, because, people have a lot of judgments around it. Well, I started posting it on my Instagram every day, and I got really positive reactions, but that's something that I just did because I was like, you know what? I do this for myself anyway. Maybe it'll help someone else. And so it turned out okay, because I was willing to take a leap of faith and expose something that was me that I wasn't willing to before. But all of that's happened since the mentorship.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Yay. And your tarots are awesome and amazing. You were doing them on Facebook. Are you still doing them on Facebook?
So I took a little break because my dogs kind of really consume my time. And then I kind of moved to a weekly. I might still put them on Facebook, but for now, I just did the weekly on Instagram. I'm still figuring out my groove, but it feels good to know that I'm willing to take the chance.
Yeah, I'm trying to do daily over on TikTok. I lost it today. I was like, it's only a minute long, but I lost it. Awesome. All right. So thank you so much, Deanna, for sharing everything with us. I know your story is very inspirational to a lot of women in here. Ladies, if you are interested in being the next Deanna and having the story of really stepping into your power, right? You can drop me in the comments below, and I can reach out and talk to you about my mentorship. So it's an 8-week program, like Deanna said, and it's really a deep, intensive healing program. So if you're really looking for the transformation this is going to get it for you. We do cry. We cry a lot, but really within the first 3 weeks. After that, we're starting to build ourselves back up, but we've got to break it down, like Deanna said, in order to build ourselves back up the way the truth is, okay? We see these things in our childhood as truth, but they're really not the truth. So we really release the energy around that, and we also work with the subconscious limiting beliefs that were created from that childhood. So we, again, connect the mind and the energy together in order to really see your truth. And I really call it, I think I'm writing a book called like the Self-Worth Awakening, because just like a spiritual awakening, everything, like nothing changes out there. When we have a spiritual awakening, we just open our eyes and see things differently. And that's the same thing in the mentorship, where your worth is always there. It hasn't gone anywhere. You just have never been able to see it before because of everything that you've been through in your life, your childhood, your relationships, everything like that. So in this program, we really go back and we start to open our eyes to this worth that you actually have inside of you. And you get more confident. You feel, you know, that you can do anything. Nothing bothers you anymore. And again, we're human, so things will come up. But like we go through it really quick. You become aware of it. So there's 4 steps that I really take you through, which is awareness. So you got to be aware of what's happening in your energy, what's happening in your mind. Like Deanna said, like she was aware that the ego is playing. She's aware that Barbara's there, right? So we have to be very aware of when something's coming up for us. Then we have to identify the root of the issue. We have to say, okay, what am I being triggered with? What is it triggering me from my past? Because most of the times when we're feeling that emotion come up for us, it has nothing to do with what's happening in this moment. It actually has to do with what's happening before. Just like Deanna said, she was being triggered when thinking of her ex-boyfriend or ex-husband with somebody else. It was triggering her the abandonment from her mother. And that's the type of thing we have to go back and figure this out. But we also then have to reprogram the limiting beliefs that were created through that childhood. And we have to release the energy around it as well. That's why the energy healing is really important. You know, we do live energy healing in this course, so it's very different than the recorded energy healing. I think it's more powerful. And then basically what we do is we talk about those boundaries and we establish those boundaries that we need, but we can't have those boundaries until we feel worthy of having them. Because if we do try to establish boundaries, but we don't feel worthy enough of it, then people will just try to walk all over the boundaries, and we'll let them because we don't know how to say no or say like, hey, you're hurting me or something like that. So we have to feel worthy in order to do that. And then of course we connect to our higher selves and stuff and spiritual things and everything in this course. So it's an 8-week program. If you guys are excited about that and really kind of want to talk to me about it, I am offering 20-minute calls. If you want, you could just write me in the comments. And I will reach out to you personally to, you know, talk about it a little bit to see if it's a good fit for you. I don't let everybody in the program. There's a certain type of person, right, that I'm looking for. People that love to go deep, not scared. People say they resist me. Deanna, am I mean in the program?
So again, this could be military experience talking, but I didn't think so. But I like that kind of, what I like is that you were so able to hold the space that like I could be losing it on my end, and you're always like, okay, this is what I want you to do. Like you're not mean, but you're definitely direct, which I think is good because it's so easy to get lost in the emotional weeds. And you really keep yourself in alignment so that we can go wherever we need to go. And it adds to the feeling of support to me, like that you didn't feed the negative narrative, you fed the moving forward, which I think was really what is needed. I thought it was awesome.
Oh, thank you. Awesome. I'm not mean. I do give tough love, but like I never yell at anybody.
Like, I so love it. Like it's and I was like, oh, this is harsh. Like never. I was like, okay, she loves me. This is what I need to do for myself. Like that's always where I was at. So.
Awesome. All right, ladies. So I want to thank you for joining us tonight. I hope you got a lot out of Deanna's story. Just know that no matter what you've been through in your past, it's never too late to change the future. It doesn't matter how old you are. I work with 60-year-old women. Like it's never too late, and it can happen within a very short amount of time. It does not have to take years. You don't have to do years of therapy. We're getting lots of love, so thank you for the hearts. It says goosebumps, nice, right? Stand up for your boundaries. Awesome. Wow, this made me so emotional. Kudos to you, Shauna says. Thank you. So
Here's one thing before we leave.
So yeah.
I just want to say this kind of popped in my head and I just want to share it. One really profound thing that happened at the end of this mentorship is I had a moment where I was standing and nothing was happening and I just felt really grateful to be living the life that I'm living. And like, it was including all of this hard stuff. Like, I was like, I had this moment of saying like, I'm so glad, granted I believe in reincarnation, but I had this moment of, I'm so glad that my soul chose to incarnate in this life, in this body, in this personality. And it was like this really like moment of like, I'm grateful for all of it. And if all of that led me here, then like, awesome. And it was like this really being at peace with everything that happened to the point that I was happy to be me, which I think is something that's so fleeting in this world. And I think I was trying to think like, what is my biggest takeaway? Like there's something deeper there. And I think that's what it is like, I'm just like happy to be living my life the way that it is and the way that it's been for what it is. So I just wanted to add that before we hung up. Sorry.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Being grateful for everything that we've went to because it brought us right here, right now. I'm grateful the same thing. Like I'm grateful that everything happened with my ex-husband because I wouldn't be here doing what I'm doing that I love doing without that happening. So I love that. So thank you so much for sharing that. So ladies, again, if you are ready to really transform your life, let's talk about it. You can again comment me in the comments below and I will reach out to you to jump on a call together to see if this is a good fit for you. All right. I want to thank you everybody for being here. If you're interested in my 21 days course, that's also available. That's starting on July 1st. That's about opening your psychic abilities. But the mentorship is really where the huge transformation comes from. Don't be scared. It's not scary. You'll cry a lot, but it's not scary. It's not scary. So don't be scared. All right. Change your life for the better. Live in alignment. Much love to all of you and have a wonderful night. Bye-bye.